Yeah, beautiful.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much again. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been taking notes and texting some colleagues of mine and have some ideas for some of what you're saying. So definitely want to be of use. And I know today our presentation is a little bit more focused on understanding these, ATS technologies, the applicant tracking systems. When Gordon originally reached out to have us come back, and I know Kimberly, our former manager of career services, who's still a recruiter with us, she's been with BoulderNet a couple times, and Ginger Robitaille, as well as Kendra Prospero. So it's my first time, but I know we are not super new at turning the corner to being here. So for this presentation, Gordon asked about kind of focusing on what these applicant tracking systems are. It sounds super techy to people who don't really know what they are. I used to be afraid of the term when I was a job seeker in the past. And so essentially what I want to do is just have a conversation, interrupt me anytime if you have questions or something doesn't quite make sense, or you have an idea or a story. But essentially what I'd like to cover today is understanding, I gave it this silly title, but what they are, why they matter, and how the heck to get past them. When you Google stuff like this, there's a lot of misinformation, or not that it's bad information, but just overwhelming. I mean, you can almost find something to support, any argument, like, oh, you should care about them. No, you shouldn't. And I want to try to make this as clear as possible and just kind of show you what they are and how to use them to your advantage. It's a really funky part of being on the job hunt, and it can feel very overwhelming. I know from personal experience. I know from working with the job seekers that I'm working with each week. It's like, oh man, I'm spending all this time finding jobs and searching for things and applying, and then oh, I have to customize my resume to even get it into the hands of a human. What happened to everybody reading every resume? Where are those days? And so yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about ATS technologies. All right, so I know you all have shared a little bit of this already, but if anyone just wants to share in the chat, or which I can't see very well, so maybe just say it out loud. But what's it? Two questions for you here. What does it feel like to be a job seeker? How do you feel like on the hunt, not knowing what's next and putting in that work? What is it like? And also, let's start with that. So how do you all feel right now? Just totally honestly,
I mean, honestly, yes. Like Gabriella's showing, it is a bit of a roller coaster. It's pretty stressful at times. It's really scary, not knowing exactly what you possibly will find or get myself into. But it's also exciting too, just, figuring out if I do take that time and, land something that fits perfectly. I'm excited for, that opportunity to be able to move on and, excel in my career. But yeah, it's definitely very stressful at times.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? All right. Yeah, I think we can all relate to that, everything across the spectrum of stress to hopefulness to excitement and
it's exhaustion.
Everything in between. maybe some expletives in there, yeah, it's especially when you find that great thing and you don't hear anything back for a long time, if at all. And we'll talk about that. Has anyone ever hired someone or been in an HR setting where you've had to use some type of applicant tracking system or HR, management tool? No. Yeah, well, I'm going to show you a little bit about what it's like. And this certainly depends, some smaller companies, like I know on our team, the way that we hire, there's 10 of us. And when, we're hiring someone on our team, we're seeing every resume that comes in. It's through our email. We believe just, in the value of, hey, even if someone's not super qualified right away, let's just read the resume, see what else is there, beyond that first impression. That's how we operate, but we're a small business. So, at mid-sized companies, larger companies, especially when you're talking bigger places like Ball and, Sierra Nevada, I mean, they're definitely using some type of system to manage just what's probably, hundreds or thousands of resumes coming in every day across all positions and all locations and things like that. So that's pretty much why they were invented, to help HR people, manage things. But it's also a little hard. Just a quick reminder that, it's the resume that's going through these applicant tracking systems. So, having a strong resume is really a great starting point. And then from there, the customizations that get you past, or get you scoring high in these systems, which I'll talk about shortly. So, just make sure you have a strong resume, that you feel good about how you're telling your story. Remember, it's that first impression of you. In most cases, recruiters spending like 8 or 10 seconds if they're looking at it and scanning it, looking for that value as it relates to the job, so that, you capture their attention and they keep reading. So it's, you're marketing yourself. And of course you want to do that authentically, but don't be afraid to, really show why they need to hire you, and, why you're interested in the job. You're not applying just for fun. I'll talk about that a bit too. I mentioned that sort of 8 to 10 second rule. And the main goal of, from an ATS perspective is to, other than, getting someone to read and see, okay, hey, this is a strong candidate. I'm going to put them in that stack of people that I want to reach out to. It really is about getting past the ATS systems and, to that recruiter for them to read. And you'll see the back end of that in a minute. So as you can see in this picture, it's a picture of this woman with just tons of what looks like paperwork, and to me they look like resumes. We'll call it that for this, but it's essentially why they started is instead of HR people or recruiters having to read every resume for every job, just like how many other software programs have made other things easy for us to manage. AT systems have really transformed the HR world. There's lots of programs out there. There's tons of companies that are always, selling their products, trying to outdo their competitors. Just like with anything, there's, 6 or 7 major players and, tons and tons of others that are trying to do it better and, capture business. So an AT system is pretty much a way for a company, no matter what the system looks like, they all kind of do the same thing. It's how you organize your applicants for the different jobs you're hiring for. Within those systems, you can communicate with applicants. So if you're getting an email that says, hey, Georgiana, this is Barb with, Sierra Nevada. I'd like to, set up an interview. If that's a mid-size or larger company, they're, it looks like it's coming from their email, but they're still probably typing to you even within that system, actually, more often than not. The other thing that it lets people do, other than just managing things, is from that first starting point, it looks and kind of parses your credentials and the wording of your resume, and it'll compare it to the job description. So some people take this with a grain of salt, because a resume has tons of words in there, like your name, your words like the and necessary words. So no one's gonna score 100% because it's just not possible because of other words that have to be there. But there is usually a ranking system where, if someone's applying to a marketing manager role and, they've had that title a few times and they have words about, marketing in their resume and marketing strategy and, just things like that, words that the job description is asking someone to have, that person is probably going to have an 80% match. And that's a really high match in an AT system. Usually you're seeing 60, 70, 80%. That sounds low because we think about it from, school days of, if I got a 61% on a test, that was a bad grade. But anything kind of at that 60% and higher is really great, because it really means that 60% or more of the words in your resume are matching with this job description. And the highest score I've ever seen in about 7 or 8 years now of doing this type of work was like a 91, and that was wild. Like, we all talked about it for about a week. Like, we didn't know it was possible. So anyway, the short version of what they do is just let people manage candidates, track where they are in the process. It's so easy. I mean, just on my calendar this week, the recruiting that I've done, I've probably talked to 12 or so people just this week. And to be fully honest with you, I have a little bit of a hard time remembering what that conversation I had on Monday was about or who it was with. And, it's systems like this that help me keep everything straight, help me move on in the process and communicate with people and see where they are in the interview process and such. So, and then in addition to just its management tool capabilities, it really will help you identify what we kind of call that top stack of people, people that are way more than even qualified, but bring unique things to the table and just help you really figure out who those top candidates are to start with reaching out to them.
Julie, can I interrupt you for a moment?
You got it.
Are you showing slides? Because I'm seeing you, but not seeing, I'm seeing you, but not seeing slides. And I saw in the chat that I think that may be what other people are seeing as well, which means if you're actually showing slides, we may be having a technical difficulty.
Oh, no. Okay. Let me see here. Thank you for telling me. I think.
Well, I just want to make sure that I'm not.
I don't think, did I not share my screen? Can you see it now?
Now I'm seeing slides.
Okay. I think that was on me. Thank you for interrupting me. I didn't have many slides, but bless all of you for staring at me for so long. All right. So yeah, these are just what I showed. I should have asked if you could see my PowerPoint. Apologies. We talked about this, getting past at systems. I was so eager to talk about them, I didn't share my screen. And here's, hold on a second. Now it's not letting me. You know what? I am going to, there it is. There we go. Okay, so this was the one I was just on when I was talking all about at systems and what they do. And here's that picture of the lady who's drowning in paperwork. Thank you all again for telling me you couldn't see.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a little picture I stole from Google. It's a kind of the funnel of why they're important, and I won't spend a lot of time on the HR side of why they're important, but I wanted to show you this is kind of what they do, right? So here on the left is this pool of people who are job seekers. They're looking, they're searching. They might come into you through various ways. They might find your website. They might see a posting on Indeed. They might see someone on LinkedIn. Someone might share that job. There's all sorts of ways that someone might be applying. But there's typically lots of people, unless the job is really niche or hard to hire, or it's a company people just don't want to work for. So that's really why it's needed. All these people for all the different jobs. I mean, if we're hiring for an office manager for our company, that's enough that we can manage, and we can, we're small. We can say, hey, we can reach out to people. But, again, that example of a bigger company like a Sierra Nevada, I mean, think about all of the roles that they're hiring for throughout the entire company, and then all of the resumes. I mean, you're quickly, there can be thousands of people in a pipeline, so it helps to manage. And then by using that, it really gets the people, that are those top tier people, and move them through the process and manage the process a bit. So I want to show you what recruiters see first, and this is actually a real client for a client we're hiring for now. And, when I go into an at system, this is what I see. So, there's 7 or so roles that we're hiring for this company. I can click on each of the role, and within that is all of the people, all of the, where they are in the processes, the stages, and, it's different for every role. So, this is just one company, and this is actually not a whole lot of roles, but, even a company that's looking for a marketing manager and a graphic designer and a couple accountants, and they're hiring for 7 things, which is could definitely be a lot more if it's a larger company. They're still needing to use something like this to stay organized and move people through the process. So this is kind of what they see first internally. And then when it comes to you, this is what they see next. And this is not a real example. This is from Google, because I didn't want to use, real information of people. So, but this is essentially what they see. They all look pretty similar. Some of them are a bit prettier than this, but each person, it's kind of a ranking system. It'll scan your resume, and sometimes it's a percentage system, and you can click on the person. Within that, it's their resume, and this is pretty much how it's managed. And you can make little notes, you can tag people. I'm for this company that I just showed you, I could click on an accountant and go in there and tag the controller of this company and say, hey, I really like this person's skills. They seem to have exactly what you're looking for, but they seem to have a new job every year. Do you worry about that, or should I reach out to them? And it's a way to communicate about particular people, or whatever it might be. So and then for everything from hey, we're not going to reach out to these people, to hey, they're in the process, we love them, we kind of like them, we don't like them for the role, and ideally, this is what makes me happy at night, and happy when I wake up in the morning too, is when someone gets hired. So why they help recruiters, and I said HR people because there's just so many different titles, but this is another real example from just this morning that I took, actually. Here is a person, right, that has applied to a role. This is part of an AT system. They applied 2 weeks ago. A couple days later, we said, hey, we're gonna reach out to this person. We like them, thumbs up. They had an interview with me a couple days after that, and then now they're interviewing with the company. So it's a lot of moving pieces, and to keep it all straight, this is one person, multiple stages. These technologies just help really organize where people are in interview processes, and what people are thinking about their resume. So that's a little bit of what it looks like. We'll talk more about kind of how to get there, how to be somebody that, like back here, oh my gosh, this is like a super talented candidate, I got to reach out right now. Or, I'm clicking on this person, Andrew, and I'm tagging the hiring manager saying, hey, this is a true example of something I would say, like, hey, this person looks amazing for the role. I don't think they're going to be on the market long. Let's reach out to them, try to get them scheduled for an interview this week. It's a good bit, and it can feel overwhelming, by being a job seeker. Of course, this is a lot of people, right? If you're applying for this role, this is just 1 of 2 pages. And but I'll tell you, the truth is, it's overwhelming to recruiters too, to manage people and use these systems. They do make it better, but it's sometimes AT systems are kind of an ugly beast, but a necessary beast. On the HR side too. It's I'll get to more of that in a moment, but the most frustrating part is when we rely on it too much to tell us who's great. And I just personally believe we might lose out on great people by not spending a little more time sometimes to review everybody. I see it on the job seeker side of what I do all the time, where somebody might be really qualified, but their resume is just not amazing, or it's they're very humble. They haven't really written about what they accomplished, and so they're not getting momentum. But as a recruiter, I can sometimes tell where people are more qualified than they are letting on. But not every recruiter is like that. I'll personally reach out to people if I'm on the fence about them, but I see the potential. I still want to talk to them. I want to get them on the phone. They might talk about their work better than their resume does on the phone. But not every recruiter has that approach, especially the larger companies. So, when you're working on your resume, and I won't go too deeply into like resume stuff because we have some resources on that. And I want to talk more about ATS and see where you all are and how you're feeling. But, this is just a little example of what you need to have, and, why it matters. So the biggest and best thing you can do to customize your resume to a job description. And that shouldn't really be as overwhelming as it sounds. The general rule of thumb is that if you have a great base resume that you feel good about, it shows who you are, that resume should be like 97% of the way there. And you're making like minor tweaks to just to talk to the job a little bit more. If you were a marketing manager and you're applying to a role that has, marketing and sales in the title, tweak your titles a little bit. If your areas of expertise or your competencies section is full of things about, project management, but the job description refers to things as project coordination, just tweak that word management to coordination, just minor things like that. Ideally, if you have a good, strong base resume, you shouldn't be spending, hours or even half an hour customizing the resume. Just little tweaks that can, help with the ats scanning stuff. And I'll show you what those are here. Another great thing to do to help get past, to just make that resume really strong is to tweak your career summary at the top. So, we typically recommend that you don't have an objective statement. It's just a little outdated. It shows, it's almost like dating, right? Like it's great to say what you want, but sometimes you also have to say what you have to offer, right? There's a lot of parallels to the dating world, in the job seeking world. So, this is an example of just something that, not because it's longer, but the one on the right is going to perform better or help that resume perform better in an at system. You're quantifying, how long you've been working. You don't always have to do that, especially if you've been working, 30, 40 years. I would recommend not doing that. But, somebody like this, just trying to get something more, early career. You're saying a little bit about, kind of what your special or area is. This is, the person on the left sounds like, oh, okay, cool. I want to be an administrative assistant and move up in my career. And the person on the right is telling us, and telling that at system, it's giving it a little more to work with. That they kind of have this specialty and executive schedule coordination, and that's awesome. This is a true example of a transformation we did for someone who was applying to an executive assistant role, just needing to speak a little bit more to like working with senior leadership, and a little bit less to, hey, I can keep the office running, and a little more to like, hey, I can work with people who are probably really stressful to work with, and and keep their schedules as clean as possible. So again, that upper part of the resume is typically the place that we recommend customizing. So that, speaking to the job description would be things like your title, that career summary, and your areas of expertise. The rest of it shouldn't really need to be customized unless you just remember you're reading a job description and you're like, oh yeah, they're asking for something that I did, 10 years ago that's not on my resume. Like I should talk about that. Like that would be an example of tweaking the rest of the resume, but minor changes to kind of what should be on the top, that career summary and your skills section. This is really where you want to look for, where this magnifying glass is, what the keywords are in a job description that you relate to, and speak to those keywords, authentically. You don't have to copy them verbatim. If they're looking for somebody in, education program management, and you've been in education project management, it's not that anal, for lack of a better term, but, making sure that, you have the words like project or program management, just speaking a little bit more. And don't forget to combine like hard and soft skills. A lot of job descriptions are, at first they're overwhelming as heck, right? It's like, here's what we want you to do. And then if you look a little bit, a lot of them will have things about, how they want you to be wired, or, some, like for a marketing role, like someone calling out someone who's great at relationship building and is, hungry to get new clients. Just so don't forget about calling out things like problem solving, or if you're looking for a sales role, like something like negotiation would be, if the word negotiation is in that job description and you are great at that, put it in your resume. And that's a perfect example of how to speak a little bit more to a job description, and your resume will perform better as a result. as it's being, scanned and processed through these technologies. And so here's some examples just of, things you could stick in your skills section, or, some we call it areas of expertise. Yours might say core competencies. It might say, skills, or, the part of your resume that speaks to like this stuff, what you bring to the table. Look at the job description, and sometimes it's easy. One of the best approaches is to just sit down and kind of read it once or twice and look for, those skills they're looking for, and think about what you bring. And so if it mentions something like, data entry, and you have worked with data, put it on there. It would certainly depend on the role in particular, but have a little bit of a blend of what it's looking for. If a job description is saying, hey, we really want someone who can come in, be creative, and manage projects, but also like be collaborative with our team, that's an example of making sure you have some words in there, like using the word creative somewhere, to show your creativity, making sure you can speak to that you have managed projects. And just really, if I could boil it down to one sentence, it would be that your resume is pretty strong to start with, and then speaking to the job descriptions is that icing on the cake that is just going to help you, get into those systems, and score higher, and have people really excited about you as well. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's not starting over. It shouldn't be that you're spending an hour per application and losing your life to this stuff, but just little tweaks. And I'm happy to help. If you take anything away from our time today, and want to pick my brain about something, or you're trying this on your own, I'm happy to look at a resume, and at any point, no cost.
Julie, I have a question.
Sure.
Will you add that webpage where you can get a free account and try ATS systems? I don't know what's the name is. I forgot it.
Oh, sure. Jobscan.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. I can definitely talk about that. So Jobscan's a good tool. They're pretty in depth. I would say, I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with it, but Jobscan is a tool where you can upload your resume, the text of your resume, the text of the job description, and it kind of shows you like what you could expect in terms of a match rate. It tells you, how it's performing. It tells you, what you're not talking to, and it can kind of give you some of this strategy. It's a really great tool. I use it all the time. Any resume that I write, before I give it to a client, I scan it through Jobscan and scan a job description that they've sent me to see how the resume is performing. I will say that I think they're a little bit nitpicky. I've seen clients over the years who they get caught up in, hey, I'm only getting like a B- in Jobscan. I want it to be an A, or I'm frustrated. It's still telling me that we're not saying this or that, or we don't have this much. So that would be my only like red flag about Jobscan, and no offense to them if any of you work there or know people who do, but it's a great tool that can give you some insights on how it performs. I use it all the time, but they are a little bit picky in they're pickier than the average system, and it's good, but at the same time, it's if you spend hours and hours trying to get a perfect Jobscan score, it just might be time wasted, if that makes sense. I see people who use it to gain some insights. They get it to a B status or whatever, and then they get a lot of interviews. So they're just know that it's a little bit they go very in depth, which is good. But if you're still if you use their feedback and you're oh cool, I did what it said I should do and I only went up 3 points. I mean, don't be too frustrated is what I'm trying to say. I never see it be like 100% basically, but it can be jobscan.com. The free account does exactly what you need it to do. They have some paid options. I use the free account every day pretty much, and they, on a personal note, they're just a good company. They're dedicated to helping people. I've worked with people who work there, and that they believe in what they're doing. And it's a nice little tool to be able to kind of see the back end of that stuff. So thank you for saying that. That's a great tool. And I have it, I was going to mention it later, and perfect question. So the biggest thing, if you only take like one or two things from this, here's one of them. When you're talking, when you're reading a job description, and to get past the ATS technology, just remember, we call it the 2 R's. So it's relevancy first and recentness second. You want to make sure that you're highlighting mostly the things that are most relevant to what you are applying to, but at the same time, don't forget about other things. I mean, that can be your icing on the cake as well. I mean, a perfect example would be me. If I were looking for a job as a recruiter, I'm going to lead with that, but then I'm also going to say, hey, but before I got into the HR world, I was a program manager a couple of places, and I was a vocational counselor, and things like that. So, but it would be a disservice to me to give all of those things equal weight. I'd want to be a lot heavier on the most relevant thing, which is recruiting. And typically, relevancy and recentness would go hand in hand. But if you're applying to something that is something you did 5 or 10 years ago is more relevant to it than your most recent role, spend the most time on that. The relevant piece comes first, and then the recent piece comes after that. That'll really help with how your resume is performing. And then just a couple of things that help with, a strong resume that's going to perform well in applicant tracking systems is, just remember to focus on what you did in your job, less about what your job was. So a quick little 2-line summary of what you were hired to do, or kind of, we say like, hey, what did you do when you showed up to work every day? Like, what was your job, right? So kind of short and sweet on that stuff. And then use bullets or other things like that to list like what you're proud of that you did, what your achievements were, and try to not be so humble that it holds you back from saying, hey, I did that, I rocked and rolled that. And here's an example. So this is I thought I'd go with something. I think I was thinking of pizza a couple nights ago when I worked on this, but here is someone who is like an assistant manager of a pizza shop. Here's this, these things are okay, right? Taking orders, handling money, promoting specials, like, okay, cool, right? But if someone's, going for a general manager job or taking that next step up, somewhere, this kind of tells me and tells an AT system like what that person did at work every day. And a better example is, just quantifying things a little bit, going a little bit deeper, to kind of show what that value was. They're little things like, that was popular. Then the first example, it's like, well, did 2 people come into that shop every day? Or, you're saying it's popular now. Just the first example is, hey, this person promoted specials, like that's great. But, in this example, it's, you helped create those promotions, and what did it do? It increased sales, it attracted new customers. I mean, that's a little bit of a stronger piece. And this person speaking to the job a little bit more, like in this last example, the job description, talking about sales and, increasing revenue. This example, the first one, just doesn't really speak to that, even though as a recruiter, I would read this and know this person could probably do that. This example tells me that a little bit more, and it's gonna, it just speaks to the job description more. And the more you speak to the job authentically, the better it's going to perform in those AT systems. And then lastly, I just have a couple of tips. I know I've thrown a lot at you. It's hard to talk about this stuff. I could talk all day about it, but it's hard to get it to a short-ish period of time. The biggest thing to do is just remember to customize your resume. AT systems are like the Wizard of Oz. It's, you don't really see them, but it's there, and it's important to remember to do these things. So customize the resume a bit to the job description. Speak to the job in particular. Remember that that it shouldn't be reinventing the wheel, but look at the job description and incorporate some buzzwords. once you've applied and your resume goes into that black hole, see about if you have connections on LinkedIn with that company. Do you know anybody in your network of friends, family, former colleagues who know people at that company, and they can, just reach out, even if it's a different department, or you can make a new connection on LinkedIn. It's totally okay to do that stuff these days. It's never, if I get a message that says, hey, I applied to this role and just saw you on LinkedIn and want to connect with you. I mean, that's just another touch point that can help you stand out in someone's mind. It's totally okay to follow up. Remember to be competitive. The best way to do that is to, especially if you've had an interview, is to just communicate, that you have some momentum with other companies if you do. And, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket waiting for someone to get back to you for weeks and weeks. It's okay to check in and, something short and sweet. And we have some samples for those messages that I'll be sending Dawn to send to everybody. The last thing I wanted to say is, timelines just so depend, and it's important to be patient, but it can also be frustrating. So self-care in that process, all companies are different. We have a client right now who I sent the CEO of this company a couple of resumes yesterday, and she scheduled interviews for today and tomorrow, the same day that I sent her resumes of people that I loved for the role that I talked to. That's amazing. But it's also, she's like the dream client in that regard, because most people don't go that fast. It's not, we have a few clients where, they'll take a few weeks to reach out to people. So it just so depends on how they do business, what else they have going on, who might be on vacations. I mean, but it's frustrating because each day that goes by on the job seeker side, it's easy to count that out. So I will share one little kind of hidden secret with you. If you're getting, very fast rejections, like within a day of having applied to a job, it's usually that your resume didn't make the cut in terms of, that scanning. There's a way that you can set it to like, hey, if someone doesn't meet my qualifications, like, they get kind of an auto rejection. So if you apply to something today and by tomorrow morning, you're hearing back that you weren't a candidate, it's usually that your resume hasn't even been seen by a person. It's probably, something about your resume not speaking to that job enough. And then, parallel to that, the last little secret I'll share is it's frustrating as heck from a job seeker perspective when you apply to something and you've heard nothing for like 3 weeks, right? I think we've all probably been there. That can sometimes be a good thing. That can sometimes mean, basically, if you haven't heard anything and it's been a few weeks, don't count it out. I've seen tons of places that, they're just slammed because they need to hire, and, they'll pick up in like a month and they'll review resumes at one time, or, they're, maybe they have talked to a couple of people, and, your resume is the next batch of people they're going to get to if it doesn't work out with the first candidate or the second candidate or whatever it is. So even though it can feel really frustrating to not hear, if it's been a couple of weeks and you haven't heard anything, you're still somewhere in that abyss of the @ system. There's some little check mark next to your name that means you're qualified, or you are someone that they don't want to count out yet. So yeah, just know that that can be, I don't know if it has anyone ever like, oh man, it's 5 weeks. Wait, someone wants an interview? Like, who's this again? Oh, I forgot I applied to that job, right? Yeah, so just just practice self-care, and yeah, it's a journey, and it's really, I think, just on a human to human level. I mean, being on the job hunt and knowing that you're going to find something. I mean, in 6 years of being with Turning the Corner, I've only had one person not find something, and it's because he said, you know what, I'm just going to retire a year early. I don't want to work anymore. So you're going to get something. It can feel so daunting, but not knowing what that thing is, not knowing what your routine's going to be 6 weeks from now or 2 months from now when you're in that new role. I mean, it's a stressful place. So doing things like this. I just, huge kudos to all of you, especially with BoulderNet being a volunteer run company. It's doing things like this, self-care, just super important. And we want to do a couple things to help. I know I mentioned to a couple of you, I want to follow up with some networking things that we have and a couple of companies that might be of use. But we also have a workbook we put together a couple of years back to kind of help make any step of the job search process a little bit easier. And it's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's not super large, but it has everything from kind of getting some clarity around what you want next. For you all here today, I think, chapter 2 and 3 will really be great with, just, how to use LinkedIn to power your job search, how to successfully network. And this book that I'll send to Dawn, so you can distribute it if that's okay, Dawn, is it's just full of things like sample language. Hey, I interviewed with somebody 3 weeks ago and they said they get back to me the following Friday. Well, that was 2 weeks ago. What do I say to them? What do I say to them without looking pushy? So we've got all sorts of templates you can take, language you can take that is successful stuff, and you can tweak it and make it your own, things like that. Even sample language for how to negotiate your salary and stuff like that. So it's a great book. We use it sometimes. We typically charge for it when we're working with business clients because it's just packed with so much stuff. But anytime we do something in this arena of working with job seekers, we just like to make it available. So let me know if you're using it and if you have questions, and I'm happy to go deeper. And just remember, lastly, the current market's a little wild right now. A lot of COVID was really big in, monumental in helping people realize, hey, I don't want to work there anymore. Or, there's a lot of people making shifts right now. It doesn't make it the market really any more competitive from what we're seeing. But it does mean that, we're seeing things take a little bit longer to fill than a year or two ago, by a week or two. And just stick with it, because so many people are in the same boat. And I think it opened a lot of eyes to, going for what you want, or making that switch, or, getting back home, to Colorado or whatever it would be. And then at any point, if you have questions or, a big aha moment you think we can help with, we've just been very happy to work with BoulderNet and get to be a part of some of these meetings throughout the years. And send me an email, send us an email. Happy to talk, or set up a time to help, and truly mean it. That's what we do. And just thank you all for first of all, listening to me talk to you for so long about scanning tools and other things. And just thanks for having me, and for having us at Turning the Corner. And with that, I'll stop blabbing away.
Well, Julie, thank you so much. I think that was fantastic and very relevant. Before we see if there's any questions, I think I'll stop the recording. And